Welcome to the Jesus Over Everything podcast, connecting the power of God's Word to everyday life.
Welcome to the Jesus Over Everything podcast. Wow, that was
Jesus is everything.
Jesus Over Everything podcast. And I am David Dorn Jr., and I'm here with Ronnie Goebel, pastor of Resurrection. Pastor of Rooted Church. And Natan.
Do you know who we are?
I do.
Who are
kind
we?
of.
Who are you?
Do you
Who
know
do you
who
think
we
you
are?
are?
I'm Ronnie Goebel.
Yeah. Let's see if people listening, they'll know. No, that's Natan Abiyan. And who are you, Natan?
I'm one of the pastors at Resurrection Church.
This is the kind of flub.
What's your current title? What's your current title, Natan?
Season 2.
Family Discipleship Pastor.
Yes. Wow. Well, maybe we'll rebrand you by the time this airs. Hey-o. So at the moment of recording.
What are we talking about today, David?
Today, we are going to continue our conversation about the qualifications of the leaders of the church, particularly the pastors, or in the scripture, sometimes we see the title elders. We spent a little while talking about the overlap of those conversations and talking about how there is really one role that the New Testament is describing in the local church, sometimes called pastors, shepherds, bishop, overseer, elder. Those things are used synonymously. And then we began to talk through some of the qualifications, the most famous and probably central conversation or qualification passages, 1 Timothy 3, verses 1 through 7, and Titus 1, 5 through 9. So before we dive back in, Ronaldo, will you read that passage for us?
Okay, this is 1 Timothy 3, 1 through 7. This is in the NIV. Paul said to Timothy, he said, "Here is a trustworthy saying. Whoever aspires to be an overseer desires a noble task. Now, the overseer is to be above reproach, faithful to his wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, not given to drunkenness, not violent but gentle, not quarrelsome, not a lover of money. He must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him, and he must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. If anyone does not know how to manage his own family, how can he take care of God's church? He must not be a recent convert, or he may be conceited and fall under the same judgment as the devil. He must also have a good reputation with outsiders, so that he will not fall into disgrace and into the devil's trap."
All right. The passage continues and discusses qualifications for deacons, but we're going to stay focused on the office of elder for right now. Last time, Natan, what did we discuss?
The first two qualifications. The first two qualifications from the passage. I mean, among other introductory remarks.
Yeah.
But we went to above reproach, right? And faithful to his wife.
And we talked a little bit about how kind of above reproach is the overarching conversation. So you can listen to that if you want to hear the rundown. But today, we're going to move right to the next qualifications. Temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, able to teach, and it continues. So, Natan, which of these traits listed in verse 2 sticks out to you as pressing for our culture?
Well, all of them.
All of them.
Right.
All of them.
But,
yes.
All of them.
All right, let me ask Ronnie the same question, then we'll go back to one by one. Is there anyone that jumps off the page at you?
Gosh, I have been thinking a lot about self-control, just personally. Because self-control, kind of like above reproach, seems like one of those ones where it's like if you have the virtue of self-control and if you are growing in having self-control, it helps you in all these other areas. And I think we live in a culture right now that there's a lot of influences on us that kind of hijack our habits and want to take control of us to make money off of us. We had some episodes on digital technology and how the algorithm and even a lot of our economy is built on trying to get us hooked on on clicking things and watching things and doing things. And so I think there's always been a battle for self-control, but I think especially today it feels like, man, there is a lot of people wanting to take control of our hearts and minds, and it just really stands out. And it's just something that even in our church plant that we've been talking to a lot of, especially the young men, about.
Right, and wisely so. If I commend you, Titus 2 all four different, let's say, life stages, older men, older women, younger women, self-control is a central theme for life that is fitting or appropriate to sound doctrine. So that's what it seems like Titus was supposed to be teaching as the church was trying to go towards maturity. Now, let's turn to self-control.
Sure.
And let's just take that first. What is self-control, Ronnie?
I would describe self-control as actually you're under control of the Holy Spirit. I think when the Bible's talking about being filled by the Spirit, keeping in step with the Spirit, it's not, self-control isn't like, okay, so I'm completely on my own and I just make all my own decisions and I do whatever I want. It's actually you've given yourself over to God and you're dependent on Him. But what God is helping you do is actually steward or like take responsibility for the things that He's given you to take responsibility for. Yeah. So you think about like having self-control, let's just say over eating food. That's an area a lot of people would think about it with. And you're basically saying, okay, what has God told me I need to do with my body and with food and with eating? Right. How do I depend on the Spirit to help me actually make the choices with eating that are kind of under control of how God would want me to live? And so if I think I need to only eat these kinds of foods or this many calories and that would be healthy for me and that would honor God, self-control would be like, oh, I actually then have the ability. I think self-control is an ability to make those choices time and time again. Right? Yeah. And you could apply that to a lot of different areas of life, but it's like, it's almost, if I have self-control, I'm able to actually act on the thing that I said is important to me. Yeah. You know, especially in the moment of temptation.
Good. Natan, anything you want to add to that?
It's self-control. And I think there's a connection between temperate, self-control, and then not quarrelsome. Yeah. Not given to drunkenness.
Right.
So God has given you a heart for emotions and a body with desires, with natural desires, and a mind to think about things. And you need to control what you do with those things. You are a person that has control, like almost like external control on how the mind, the heart, and the body function. Right?
Okay, so can you talk about temperate a little bit? As how do you see it connected?
Right, because
I'll be honest, temperate's one of those words where sometimes I have a hard time getting a handle on it.
Yeah.
Temperate. I see temperate, and especially from my translation in Spanish, as kind of like a person that it's in the middle. It's not running too hot. It's not running too cold.
Okay.
You know? So you're not going to say, well, you know, I get angry very easily. I get very passionate about things, and then I run my mouth and I don't even know what I'm saying. Yeah. You know? Or on the other side, I am so cold, you can talk to me, I'm not even listening. I just do not care. Yeah. Right? So that would be kind of in the middle, like a person that it's at the temperature of that the room needs, you know, and that the conversations, the relationships need, with the self-control to say, okay, you know, I have my body, my heart, and my mind under control.
Would you say like if you're temperate, you're not like overindulging? Like you know like the right amount, let's say of he says not a drunkard.
What is your translation CSB say?
Sensible, but I thought sober-minded was in there somewhere. Am I missing that?
Well, temperate and sober-minded are usually similar translations, right?
Yeah,
right.
And
that might be the ESV.
Maybe it's the ESV. Sober-minded was the one floating around.
So
in my mind.
to keep your head.
Yeah.
Temperate. A temperate person keeps their head.
Okay.
It feels like a loose translation. I mean, maybe a Greek scholar.
Well, so that connects to. I was thinking sober-minded, and even with self-control, it's interesting. Like if you're sober-minded, you're thinking clearly, keeping your head.
Right.
When are we thinking most clearly? When we're thinking in light of what's true about what God has said.
Right.
And we can be sober-minded and think clearly when we're most filled with the Spirit. And dependent on Him, and it is kind of this, you know, like driving under the influence, right? Like being drunk with alcohol. There's this way where if you're filled with the Spirit, Paul even contrasts this in Ephesians 5. That's when you're actually thinking clearly,
right?
When you're drinking deeply of the Spirit,
right. You're under the influence. All right, so then let me press this a little bit with you guys. There's a lot of indulgence in our culture. Okay, there's a lot of fuel and celebrate your appetites, but there's also a counter movement that might appeal to some of the young men through influencers and things like that. That is more like self-discipline and maybe
who's going to carry the boat,
a warrior way, like a stoicism.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between self-controlled and self-willed? I think you started to touch on it. So maybe, do you have any, if we just said, oh, this guy, he's locked in, because there's unbelievers locked in.
Well, locked into a diet, locked into exercise, or even like work habits or something like that.
Right. So is this saying, is Paul simply saying, find your killers?
Yeah. You got something on that, Natan, or?
No, you go ahead.
The thing I was just thinking about is and you guys tell me what you think, but if self-control is you're under the influence of the Spirit more and more, and therefore you're stewarding your life well in a self-controlled way, it's like, well, what's the goals of the Holy Spirit though? What is the Holy Spirit wanting you to do? What is he wanting to influence you towards? And it's love, and oftentimes sacrificial love, worship of God, love of people. And so I think the biblical self-control is you are taking responsibility for these areas of your life, not in a self-absorbed way or in a self-serving way ultimately, but actually this helps me to love and sacrifice for others.
Right.
And I think that can be different. I think some of the stuff you're referring to can almost be like, hey, if I can get my life under control, this really benefits me. I'll feel better, I'll be better, I'll be more successful, I'll make more money, I'll have a better body.
Yeah, the outcome is self-centered.
Yeah.
Yep. I think we can move on after this. I thought sometimes the contrast, like if self-discipline it's better than no discipline to be disciplined, right? And the scripture makes it clear that, the way of a lazy person or a gluttonous person is very hard. But the scripture is calling us for God-directed desires and actions, not simply self-directed. So undirected, clearly Proverbs says your life's going to be horrible if you have no direction, no discipline. Undirected and undisciplined living is horrible. And in that sense, stoicism and these other things like the lock-in mentality is observably better in some ways because undirected and undisciplined is destructive. But then self-directed and self-disciplined has its own dangers.
Yep.
Whereas, and please forgive me, but self-disciplined is a good word sometimes we use. But what I want to say is spirit-disciplined, God-directed desires, God-directed outcomes. And so we're pouring ourselves not into simply, well, what do I want to come of all my efforts that I strenuously pursue? And what do I want to avoid that, maybe impulses might draw me towards? But what is God calling me to be?
Do either of you guys have an example, just as a pastor, of how the temperate, self-controlled, sober-minded, why you're like, oh, I, as a pastor, I see why that is important for me to be like that because of my role?
Any?
Well, yeah. I'm done.
Yeah, give us one.
Maybe just as an illustration of like how this comes to life.
Well, you can be in counseling sessions and you hear horrible things.
Yeah.
That your flesh would want to react in a way that it's just a reaction, maybe there's some sin expressed or something like that. And pastors are in that sort of situation all the time where you might just think, man, I want to do something to this person. This is a horrible situation. And we are called to be sober-minded and self-controlled and gentle and not given to violence and stuff like that. Even, in arguments when you want to do something and members of a congregation argue against it, and you start getting angry, or hot-headed because you just want to do your thing. You're like, I'm the pastor, I'm the leader. So there's plenty of situations where you can either fall into a reactionary type disposition.
Yeah, especially emotional situations.
Emotional reaction to a sentence that has been said, or a paragraph, or a question, or a piece of feedback, or whatever. And Paul here is calling us to just kind of be, warm and sober-minded, clear head, thinking, using our spirit-led mind to examine the situation.
Yeah.
Any examples for you?
Yeah. I mean, I think on the other side, not just of like reactive, but the direction setting, self-control, where you think, oh man, I don't like when people make pastoring out to be, the worst thing or hardest thing in the world. I do think there are plenty of temptations though, where you go, there's plenty of lines of work or investments that are more immediately rewarding.
Yeah.
So in a world of self-indulgence, and you think, okay, this is not as rewarding in the immediate moment as maybe some other line of work, and I can have somebody else yell at me.
Yeah.
I could have somebody else yell at me who pays me a lot more or whatever, Well, that lie, I mean, I feel really well paid, but like that lie is going to cross a pastor's mind where you're like, oh, you mean I could clock out and some of those indulgent impulses are going to be there. And if you're going to endure with joy, I think it's going to be connected to some level of being able to say, God-directed desires trump my own personal desires.
And I was thinking work too, because when I think about these qualifications, and we're thinking about especially if we're thinking about a pastor that is going to be paid by the church, it's like if you're somebody that is able to teach and you're a great teacher, but there's some real yellow lights, red lights when it comes to self-control. Not only are there probably questions around like sin with that, of like, are you giving into indulgence and sin? But also just like, are you going to be a good worker?
Yeah.
I think the self-control piece is one of those like, man, this is connected to work ethic, especially if you're a pastor on a smaller team or you're your own boss kind of element, only person in the office kind of thing. I think it's super important.
Right. Yeah, and even just the generosity people have in ministry, I don't mean by financial, I mean they kind of give the benefit of the doubt. You want somebody who's disciplined.
Yep.
All right, so respectable.
Yeah.
All right, now I think these are the places where, again, we say, hey, the passage is so culturally informed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not that this word is bereft of meaning, but it can't really be painted without the color palette of your culture.
Yeah.
So what comes to mind
Yeah.
in respectable for, let's start with Natan.
But I was thinking about that because Paul remained respectable when he was in jail, being condemned by the present government, right, of the Roman Empire. Right. So he was accused, found guilty, whatever, and imprisoned. And we would say he continued to be respectable, right? So I'd say a person that their lifestyle deserves respect because it follows the commandments of the scriptures.
Yeah.
Not because of cultural standards. I mean, some cultural standards, especially here in the United States, match the ones in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
In other cultures, not so much. Here, some match. So as far as that goes, you can be respectable among the culture, but basically respectable because there is no fault with your behavior as it concerns to the commandments of the Bible.
This is one of them for me. That's like, it makes it so obvious that this has to be worked out in real relationships in a real community.
Right.
Like somebody has to be able to look at you and say, "Oh, I respect you."
Yeah.
And I feel like the way that respecting somebody kind of works, sometimes someone will do something, like an action, you're like, oh, I respect you because you did that. But a lot of times it's almost like you just kind of have been around this person and there's just a lot of things that have added up over time where it's like a gut feeling like, oh yeah, they're a respectable person. Like
right.
I look to them and there's things about them that are worth imitating. And again, so this drives it towards the qualifications for pastors being something that there has to be people in a church that know you and that are around you and that are kind of seeing you. And if you were put up on stage as like, hey, we're looking at this guy as a pastor, there'd be kind of this, oh yeah, I respect that guy. Yeah.
So there is something to some of maybe the older generation was more comfortable with saying something like about a guy being, I remember an older pastor saying something like, that guy's just not really a leader of men.
Yeah.
And I bristled at it.
Yeah.
I bristled at it. And I actually wonder if it's kind of capturing some of this word where it's like, well, wait, do we see anybody else looking up to this guy? Do we see anybody thinking like, oh, that guy is who I'd like to imitate or be like? Now, here's a question, Ronnie and Natan. I really want to hear this from you guys. And I know it's not planned. Sorry, it's kind of. But how do we pursue being respectable leaders without creating, without performing, without creating an image? How do we make sure that we're pursuing respectable leadership, but not with PR?
I think that goes for all of these, that this doesn't become, these are the, this is the resume I'm trying to build for the church.
Yeah, this one just comes to mind because it's so like, people think I'm respectable. So how do you pursue that? Long dead airwaves.
I know. No, because my mind is going somewhere else. But well, first, because Ronnie said something very interesting about how this is tied to the community, right? To a community. Because if nobody sees you, how can you be respectable, right? And then verse 7 later, it says, he must also have a good reputation with outsiders.
Yeah.
So
outside the community, inside the community.
Right.
Two different angles.
One of the temptations, big temptations for pastors, especially those of you that preach the word Sunday after Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, you could lock yourself in an office for 40 hours, come out, preach a sermon, and then hide again and go study the Bible again and just come out to the pulpit. And you hear these funny stories about pastors that have their offices connected directly to the stage, from like a...
from the bat cave?
Right.
The bunker.
And if you preach the word really, really, really well, people will find that respectable, and then there's no charges, right? But I think it's one of the big temptations. But then if you have a relationship, to your question, if you have a relationship with the community, what you are is what they see, or it should be that way. You don't have two personas. You don't have your pastoral, respectable persona, and then you're somebody else at home or outside in the community, right? So, no two personas, just one, and that's something I try to do. I try to be outside. I try to find different places to insert myself in the community. Being creative in different ways to jump into the community so they can see myself, and hopefully they'll be able to say, what if they come to church and they see me on a Sunday preaching, they would say, that's the same person that we met,
right?
On that Tuesday afternoon.
What do you think, Ron? Anything to add there?
I think it's like you don't like aim at being respectable in a sense. Like you're not like you don't like have it on your wall of like I gotta be that. It's kind of one of those qualities that you are this because you've got your eyes somewhere else. You're looking at God and you're worshiping Him and you're trying to grow. You got your eyes on people, and there's like this byproduct of when you're doing that, you're probably living respectably. Right. But I do think that it's helpful that it's in the list because it's just the litmus test where you can ask somebody like, hey, would you say that I'm respectable? Like when you think that, when you look at me, is that easy for you to agree with, or would you have reservations? And then that can kind of help you know if maybe there's some blind spot you have that has been disrespectful to people or something or whatever, but I just think it's like you're not aiming at it as much as you're aiming at something else, and this is a byproduct.
Can I give you it might be a silly example, but this always rubbed me the wrong way, especially here in the United States. One of the places where I used to see pastors a lot, it's in leagues for their children, right? Yeah. The soccer leagues, the baseball leagues, the basketball leagues, right? And I used to be a referee. And in the community that I was a part of, it was kind of a joke, like a ha-ha moment, where a pastor or a father of a kid in the team will get kicked out of the game for yelling at the ref.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody will be like, ha ha ha, that was funny, right? How I yelled at the ref until he got so annoyed at me that he kicked me out of the game.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know, maybe I'm judging, maybe it's pride, I don't know, but I always thought, no, it's not funny.
Yeah.
It's not funny that you lost your temper so much.
Right.
Because of an 11-year-old soccer game
Right.
that you yelled at another human while he was working, with the referee, so much that he had to kick you out, single you out. So that's what I think when I respectable, good reputation with outsiders.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
if you're being kicked out of games, do you have a good reputation in that league now?
Right.
With those
Yeah, the
people
reputation
outside?
with outsiders one helps too with just like the integrity thing of like when
Right.
you're around people that are not paying you to be this way, that's
Right.
and like
Right.
are not expecting this out of you. Are you
Right.
the same? Are you the same person?
Yeah, integrity was a word I think of with respectable. Basically, what you see is the genuinely what's there.
Yeah.
I do think though, and this I don't want it to be a long rabbit trail, but I do think that there were some dangerous, like, maybe put on a face, pastors act a certain way that could
Yeah.
come up. But I think the pendulum swung a little far. So there's,
Towards what?
I just know a decent amount of guys who are in ministry who seem like they couldn't handle having a dress code at an employer. And there's lots of places where it's like, no, you have to get a haircut and you have to dress business casual. And I think that it's okay for a culture, even if there were places where churches were legalistic, our culture still has respectable descriptions. And so there are certain, especially younger culture members of our church, where I'll gladly meet them in exercise clothes because they don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when I'm going to go visit an older member of our church, I'll usually put on pants and a collar.
Yeah.
And I think that...
Now, where are you at right now? Because I've seen you preach in a Count Chocula shirt.
Yeah.
I've also seen you preach in a suit.
Right.
And both in the Sunday gathering.
Right. So, and that's where one thing, and this will be interesting to people on the podcast. So as a missionary, thinking like a missionary, I would say to the home context I'm from, the larger the church has grown, the more I have consciously adopted some of the required demonstrations of a larger group leader.
Yeah.
So I think I've preached in a collar every week for the last several years now,
Yeah.
which was not true early on.
Right.
And it was just like, it was an expression of this. Is it a hindrance? Is it moral to wear a collar or not? No. And I think the day that I actually wore the Count Chocula shirt was like deathly hot, and I had something else on over it, right? It was like I think I had a sweatshirt on, and then it was very hot, and I was like, well, here we go. But I actually don't feel uncomfortable. I don't think I did anything moral. But I actually was one of those guys who thought all rules are stupid. And all cultural conventions are stupid. And I think as I'm getting older, I've been a little bit rebuked and humbled by like, you know what?
Yeah.
As I'm watching everyone, let's not preach in the Cookie Monster pajama bottoms. Like let that.
It's an example of thinking about this and being like, and it goes back to the culture thing that Natan mentioned first. Of when you think about respectability, you've got to out of love for the people that you're around, and the wanting to kind of embody the gospel in that place. You got to figure out what does respectability look like,
right? And I
context.
think that can be overplayed. You have to be careful.
Yeah.
But I do think that I needed to just be okay with leaning in on, hey, when I make that hospital visit, I need to run and change my clothes real quick.
Yeah.
Because it's not to be respectable, to be clear, like not so they perceive me, but if I am trying to inhabit the biblical qualifications, and our culture has so much change.
Yeah.
All right, hospitable. All right, what does it mean to be hospitable?
This one is easy.
Go Natan.
This one's easy, he said.
Right, yeah. You open
Easy
your...
to define.
Yeah. Easy to define, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
you open your house, you open your life for other people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, okay.
Not a hermit. Is that a word? Yes, right? Hermit?
Yeah, hermit.
Yeah, there
Yep.
you go. Here.
Hermit the frog. Just kidding. That's not. But the what do you think, Ronnie?
No, what do you think, David?
Natani?
No. What do you think?
I'm in the
What
middle
would
of
you
the
add?
Natani. I do think the Bible tends to also that we could probably think of this as an open-handedness and generosity, especially toward those
Of
in
life.
need, because a lot of hospitality in the early centuries was the stranger.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like come over for dinner. Life was very communal for them.
Yep.
And so it definitely includes that, I think. But I do think we should be seeing men in leadership who are generous in more expressions than just food.
Yeah.
I think that the hospitality, the home is probably the central place where generosity would be displayed, right?
Yeah.
You come share at my table.
Yeah.
You come
Yep.
stay in my guest room because you're in need.
So I was thinking, it's like today, I feel like the hospitality one makes a ton of sense because I'm just like, we live in a time where it's very easy, and gravity kind of seems to pull people towards just being individuals in their homes.
Yeah.
And like, in order for a church to be a place where people know each other and like real love can happen in relationships, and even like discipleship can happen, it's like you got to find ways to get people together, and the pastor needs to lead the charge in that.
Right.
So that, I think about that for today. I'm like, oh yeah, it's crucial. But in a more communal culture like this, why do you think it was still important? You know, why wouldn't he have just assumed like, you know, you're already around people all the time? Were there people that were not hospitable? You know, like why was it so important even back then, you guys think?
Well, I'm sure cross culture. You want to jump on that, or
No, go ahead.
I'm sure cross culture, across time and place, there's different challenges to this word always. But whether you're in a poverty-stricken place,
Yep.
there's a sacrifice to open your table and home. Whether you're in a place of great strained diversity, the idea of welcoming in other people is an act that is. So our culture has drifted, it feels like, so far from just, oh yeah, it's an act of hospitality to have your parents over for dinner. It's like, well, that's not what the Bible's probably talking about here. They might have lived in the same household with you. You know, this is more like, the stranger ministering by welcoming in.
Yeah,
and I
which
think
I think of Jesus. I think what Jesus is doing with all these meals he's having with people, and the Pharisees
really,
are kind of looking like, why is he eating with them?
Yeah, and his presence was really a display of that heart.
Yep.
Fascinatingly, he was often receiving that hospitality as well, right?
Yes.
We have passages about people not being welcoming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that's a temptation because it costs things.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
Yep.
money and time and stress and pressure. Right. So Matthew 10, when Jesus sends the 70, he says, if anyone will not welcome you or listen to your words, leave that home or town and shake the dust off your feet. Right. So he said, hey, there are going to be some people in that town that as you arrive, they're not gonna welcome you. You're not gonna find a place to stay. You're not gonna have a home. You're not gonna have a bed. So just get out of there and go to the next one, right? And in 1 Timothy 3, he said, well, the pastor should not be one of these people. You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Yeah.
And then isn't that the not being hospitable is one of the problems of 3rd John or 2nd John? Remember?
Yes, in 3rd John. Or Diotrephes, he did not welcome the other brothers.
Right.
Is that right? He loved to be first, and he
He loved
didn't
to be first. He
welcome
loved to
others.
close doors. He just wanted to be the important one. So when other, I don't know,
It says right here, I wrote, Diotrephes, who loves to be first, will not welcome us.
will not welcome us.
Yeah.
Right. So I think Diotrephes has he's not thinking, oh, this is going to cost me too much. I think he's more thinking, John is coming and he's going to steal my place of authority, of recognition. And therefore, I'm not going to invite him into our town or our community. And in 1 Timothy 3, the pastor cannot be a person that is like that.
You know, Christians are coming and you shut the door in their face.
Right.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, it's tiring. I mean, I don't know how to explain this without it sounding self-congratulatory. But like
Well, what
this
would you do?
week.
Or go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you're somebody's listening to this and they're like a young guy who's like trying to think through these for themselves, and you're like, hey, how do I grow in this? What do I do? What do I practically start doing to try to be hospitable?
Yeah, I
What
think
would
it's.
be some
I think
thoughts?
it's a spiritual discipline, or it's a discipline. Let's say it
Okay.
that way.
Yeah, it's a
It's going to be spiritual. So I mean, Abby and I have a weekly meeting, and we have to have a weekly meeting, or else we'll have multi-weekly fighting. You know, so we have to get our schedule on board together. And
When do you do it?
usually it's Saturday afternoon at 4. So because then we can go to church knowing that when we're available to host someone
Yep.
or when we're available to like move towards an opportunity. And so we try to do it before Sunday gathering.
That's good. That's a little tiny strategy towards being hospitable.
Yeah.
And
Right?
because
That's a great
otherwise
thought.
we
Great
end up
idea.
saying to 20 people, well, let me talk to Abby first.
Yep.
And it's like, nope, we already
Yeah.
nailed down.
Yeah.
But then, this week we didn't, so from Saturday honestly till I don't know which day, but there was like four waking hours where we were alive and in the same room together, and over a course of like 5 days, right? And I was like, well, hey, life is going to be busy. Do we need to keep our discipline of trying to host somebody? And I said, we don't have to this week. I know you're going back to work, and I know that it's stretching, and we haven't seen each other. Yeah. And we said, no, let's do it. You know, so we hosted somebody on Tuesday night, and honestly, it was really fruitful, and it went really well. And I think it was partly just the discipline where we said we're going to do this. And I know you're coaching Monday night, and you're coaching Wednesday night, and we have parent meeting tonight at Thursday night, and it's life, you know?
Yeah. It hospitable is so practical. It's make your schedule, talk to your wife, or if you're a single guy, put it in your calendar. But it's gonna dictate the decisions that you make with the house that you buy. You know, if you buy a smaller house and there's only one big room, is that gonna be the dining room or is it gonna be the TV living room?
Yeah.
So, well, I want to have people over for dinner, so it's gonna become the dining room. You know.
Yeah.
Although maybe you want it to have a gigantic TV and a very big couch. No, this is just an example. But the choices that you make are going to be strategic to be able to do this.
If there's somebody aspiring to eldership in our church, I would love for them to think about hosting a small group as a test.
Yeah.
So you host a small group twice a month, and you have to learn through the friction that you and your wife feel of getting the house clean, scheduling. That's just a practical way. Anything you want to add?
No, I just think that's a great step. I think it's a great step of just thinking like, how can you have people over just starting in your church?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if we need to overcomplicate it.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
Yep.
Able to teach. Okay. This is a loaded one. So let's keep going. So able to teach. What does it mean to be able to teach?
You want to go into that one?
Well,
able to teach?
I welcome a revision. What do you think?
Well, so an interesting thing from this list, it's all, the whole list is about character, right? And then I see two abilities. Normally commentators say there's only one ability, able to teach, which is probably right. But I think able to teach and knowing how to manage your family, that's also in the realm of ability, I think, right?
They're all connected. We talked about this last time, how the character and the abilities are very linked. Even to be a good husband, like that takes a ton of ability and skill.
Right.
Things to learn.
So two abilities, able to teach, able to manage your house, your family. When it says able to teach, I understand it as speaking as knowing your stuff.
Yeah.
So having the knowledge and knowing how to communicate it.
Being helpful to people.
Right. So if we filled out, I mean, tell me if you guys think I think they're correlated.
Yep.
Titus says he must hold firmly to the trustworthy message as it has been taught. There's your know your stuff.
Right.
Yep.
So that he can encourage others by sound doctrine and refute those who oppose it.
Right.
So there's your communicate it, whether to opponents or to disciples. What would you add to that, Ronnie?
Well, I was going to say, Alfonso, our pastoral resident, and I, we were talking the other day about this and how when Titus adds that last line about refuting those who contradict it, to me that ups the level a little bit of how well you need to know your stuff and how able you need to be, because it's one thing to know what the Bible teaches about a bunch of things and be able to teach that. It's another thing to be able to say, and here's how that's different from this other religion or this other idea,
right?
And then especially if there's a back and forth going on,
right?
So I think the Titus one really adds a lot to able to teach, and it kind of says like able to teach in a way that is like leadership in the church teaching,
right?
You know, and there's going to be there's obviously in the New Testament lots of false teaching happening that they're combating against, and so I think Paul has that in mind. What do you have there, Natan?
Well, with that, 1 Peter 3:15. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but do this with gentleness and respect, keeping a clear conscience, right? So that's for all believers, right? Which, and we've said before, right? The list in 1 Timothy 3 is not that this list only applies to pastors, right? These are Christian characteristics. So yeah, you need to be able to teach, you need to be able to encourage others, but you need to be able to defend the gospel, defend the hope. And if all believers should do it, the pastor needs to be able to do it more, right?
Lead others in it.
Yeah.
So that's know
Yeah.
your stuff, and then know how to communicate it, because it says, and do it with gentleness and respect and keeping a clear conscience.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, because again, it's like we kind of talked about this last time, but these qualifications, it's not just kind of like a, for people that are interested in this job, here's the list, and you kind of just are like thinking about this list. It's the qualifications are there because they serve a very specific purpose, and what is that? Leadership in the local church.
Right.
It's not here's how you be qualified to take a test on something. It's like here's what would qualify you to be able to lead these people, and leading people is just gonna that's a lot of teaching that you're doing, and that's a lot of defending that you're doing, right? And so it's are you qualified to be able to lead people in teaching throughout life and over time and against opposition and all that kind of stuff.
Information is central, and communicating that information is central to leadership. What were we going to say, Natan?
I was going to read 2 Timothy 4:2. Paul tells Timothy, preach the word, be prepared in season and out of season, so that know your stuff, right? You got to know the word, and then correct, rebuke, and encourage with great patience and careful instruction. So you got to know when and how to correct, when and how to rebuke, when and how to encourage. You need to be able to do it with great patience and careful instruction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, is seminary required to be qualified to be a pastor?
No.
Okay. Anything you want to add to that?
But if by seminary you mean the degree that here in the States normally means a master's, no.
Yeah.
If by seminary you mean formal training in order to be qualified for teaching, then I'll say, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I would just say that the outcome, if whatever gets you this outcome. Now, seminary is the best thing we've got towards that outcome. Right. But it's the outcome.
But just because seminary in the States normally means master's degree, which I don't know in how many other cultures, but like
I think that's
North European.
Yeah.
But
I think that's fine. The word seminary shouldn't be taken to mean all training. I was meaning formal education. But do you think somebody could be qualified for this passage if they haven't taken up a disciplined season of training themselves? What do you think?
I think even like disciplined season.
So season is the word I added.
Could have some wiggle room of what does that mean? I think that there's probably a lot of great pastors out there that learned. There wasn't like a so definite 3 years or something like that, but it was like they were learning as they were leading.
Yeah.
And I think especially with Titus, it's interesting to think about, like, Titus seems to be being told that there are, there's these churches on this island.
Yeah.
And they're real churches, but they're immature. They need biblical leadership. Your job is to go and help these churches appoint leaders. Here's what to look for. And I don't think there was a seminary there yet.
Right.
So it's like somehow he's supposed to be able to see these people.
Or raise them up.
And raise them up.
Yeah, I think that's where train them and raise them up. I think I agree with you guys. I was just, for the sake of the podcast and people listening, I think that if somebody isn't interested in sweat-inducing training, they're not qualified.
Yeah.
If
you won't get to that outcome.
Right.
Yeah.
If they are not in a traditional schooling setting, that's not the issue.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's where, and you're right, a season I interjected to kind of just move gradations, but somebody could, over the course of a lifetime, be a student of the word and working in it, and therefore achieve that result.
Yeah, I think you could make the case, though. You could be like, hey, a season of seminary you could say, hey, I think that's the best path towards this. And if someone says that's not going to be my path, I think the question has to be, okay, well, what is your path?
What is your path?
What's your plan?
Yeah, I think I would say if you want to take up these responsibilities as a career, a job, then I would expect you want to start that career younger than it would take you to get there if you didn't train diligently. So hey, you might master the Bible by the time you're 50 just through the normal habits of life in a church. But that's going to be also then require that then you don't change careers till then.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to make mastery a focus, you might want to pause everything and labor in it for a season of time.
Yeah,
Right?
that'd be
That
wise.
kind of thing. It's a spectrum. What are you going to say?
But 2 Timothy 2:15, again, Paul to Timothy, do your best. So that's what we're talking about. Like, what does that mean, right? Do your best to present yourself to God as one approved, a worker who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly handles the word of truth. So I'd say, a disciplined season of study where you learn how to handle the word of truth. And in order to be even more specific, I'd say that means you understand and can summarize, disguise the main doctrines of the Bible.
Yeah.
Revelation, God,
Discuss.
the Son, discuss. Sorry, what did I say?
Disguise.
Oh, sorry, discuss.
Hide them.
Anthropology,
Yeah.
Christology, all of those things. And you have a very clear idea of the story of the whole Bible, and you have a very clear idea of each book of the Bible. What does it mean?
Yeah, I think this is where practically all three of our churches are young enough that we should consider this. But historically, there has been different levels of expectation in some branches of the church. So a teaching elder in a Presbyterian setting might have a higher examination standard for what able to teach means and refute sound doctrine.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a danger to the church over time if the roles are too far apart, because the Bible doesn't separate them in such a way that you have kind of the seminary guy who's on staff and then the wise business leaders who are not.
Yeah.
And that thing of, I think we need to interject some more diligent theological training into the life of any and every elder, whether it's staff or non-staff, because these are for all of us. That's my opinion of hey, it doesn't have to be seminary, because I think that's, we've already established that. But the idea that all of us, because what you could end up having is you kind of have the potentially a group of people, and this happens whether it's down south or somewhere. There's an executive board, let's say, of leaders in the church who are not deeply woven into Scripture.
Right.
And then they are really telling maybe the one guy who studied a bunch of things that are not healthy. And I've heard some incredible stories of churches that, 100 years into their history, now this thing is mutated. And I think one of the best ways for us to protect that is, well, yes, every member knows their Bible for sure. But also then we say, no, we're not calling in leaders just because they started a business.
Yeah.
We're not calling in leaders who just manage their house, so to speak.
Yep.
We keep able to have some teeth. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about, you see these examples and this pattern of a plurality of pastors in the churches. Do you guys think that a team of pastors, as a example we see a lot of, and maybe even as an ideal, does that allow for okay, this team has to be able to carry the weight of teaching in the church, and there can be some people on the team that are more equipped and better at teaching than others, and that kind of allows this other guy to be on the team. If he maybe even say you got an elder that's able to teach is maybe the place that he needs to grow the most in, okay, but he could really help our church right now if he was on this team, and we can get him there over time on the team as an example. What do you guys think about that?
Well, that makes me nervous because it seems to mutate what we would expect an elder to be doing. Because I would think, well, the place you'd need another elder is to be another voice in people's lives with the word.
Well, I'm not saying he can't do that. I'm just saying he's just there's different levels of able to teach on that team. Yeah. And this person would be in last place with that. He's not unqualified by able to teach.
Okay, yeah.
But you're just he's not going to be preaching anytime soon on Sunday.
Yeah, so that's the methods of where are you teaching and when definitely have to be considered, because Paul says he taught publicly and from house to house. Yeah. And I don't think that public teaching or preaching is the only way to meet this qualification. My interpretation. You share that?
Yeah.
Okay, so but if you were saying like this guy can't communicate the word of God, I'd be like, well, no, don't bring him on and help him. But if you're thinking, oh yeah, probably we're not going to ask him to preach week over week for the life of the church, well, fine, yeah.
Well, I was just even thinking. Remember how we were talking about there's that next level, which I guess isn't even a next level. It's just in Titus where he says able to refute. It's like that seems to be like, okay, this is not just somebody that loves the Bible and knows it pretty well in the church. This is someone that can lead the church in Bible teaching.
Yes, and I think all elders need to be doing that.
Yeah.
So then, well, maybe we'll come back down to that in the future. But not given to drunkenness, not violent but gentle, not quarrelsome, and not a lover of money. Because these 4 nots are kind of stated as maybe restraining clarifications. Maybe we can discuss these together. What's he getting at, Natan?
Yeah, it's difficult to read those and not understand it as a subdivision of self-control.
Yeah.
You know?
I was thinking that too.
Right? Like you don't get drunk. Right? You don't get violent. You don't start fights for no reason, and you do not love money. You're not greedy.
Yeah.
Right? So you have control of your drinking. You have control of your strength. You have control of your mouth, and you have control of your finances.
Man, each of these has really obvious ways that it's like appealing and trying to destroy men in our culture.
Tell us.
I think about that. Man, well, the drunkenness has always been there. You know, there's alcohol ravages people, along with, I would think you can apply marijuana. You know, you can apply a bunch of things.
Yeah.
You can have a pastor addicted to painkillers. Same because of this passage, right?
Yep.
But also I thought about not quarrelsome and how, like the social media the comment warrior.
Well, yeah, where you feel you've got more, you kind of act like a different person online because you just feel more free to.
And just spend your time arguing about frivolous things, right?
Right.
But lover of money, I think, is really sneaky and pressing in our day.
Yeah.
Just the Lord said the deceitfulness of riches will choke out the word. Well, any more thoughts, Ronnie or Natan, on these 4? They seem very clear.
Yeah, I keep coming back to just thinking of like, why would this be so important for somebody that's leading the church? Now, obviously, these are important for all Christians, but like for somebody that's leading the church, and you can just see it, man. It's like you're not going to be able to lead people well if you're drunk. If you're violent and quarrelsome. Like there's enough problems going on in people's lives, and that can happen in the church.
Right.
That if the leader is can get sucked into that very easily, then that's going to be some hard situations in the church. And then I think the not greedy, the overseers of the church are playing a big role in overseeing the money of the church, and so you don't want somebody that's greedy having a lot of access and leadership over the money.
Right, that Judas.
Yep.
The Judas thing, or the way that it's going to influence their ability to teach the word faithfully.
Yeah,
because they're going to tickle ears. And say, what's this person want to say? Man, and it is important because this is worthy work and it's pressure filled work. And I joke. I mean, I was joking around, but I said something today to a friend like, when I hear that, I just want to throw something through a window, right? And I was like teasing, but I remember actually a time in my life where I could feel that fight, and it's like, oh, you can tell why these are needed qualities, because whether it's been like, somebody has mistreated their spouse, or there's some decision that's really harming the flock, or I think there's some capacity for a pastor to be a defender for people, but like, the word is that sword, not your own. If you're going to encounter this hard-hearted person and you think, well, I know what I'll do. I'll get to your heart through your forehead.
Right.
That's not going to work.
But and that's I David knows I never say pastoral work is the hardest of the I don't indulge in that type of conversation. But it is particular work because you are involved in people's spiritual lives, spiritual, emotional. All the time.
Yeah.
24/7. Right? We don't say, hey, if you're gonna have a fight that is leading to divorce, have it from 8 to 5 p.m. because then at 7, I'm not gonna be, So you're involved on the thing that matters most in their spiritual lives all the time.
Yeah.
So, I used to have a job that was very, very important with University of Cambridge, and I was, importing documents and downloading documents and making registrations and managing a lot of money with that and exams, and so it was very important. But at 5 p.m. I was done. So like if I got drunk 6 to 9, my boss didn't care at all.
Yeah.
He just wanted me to show up the next day at 8 a.m. and do the work that I was supposed to do. And if I was fighting with people on Facebook at night, I didn't care, because the only thing that he cared is that I would fill out some Excels correctly, right? But if you get into a conversation where you are discussing, parenting strategies, in a family, or how to love your wife, or how to respect your husband with a couple, or if you're in a leadership meeting on how to run a ministry that is serving a lot of people spiritually, and you have this quarrelsome, violent attitude, it can show up. And I am very sensitive to the issue of how some of the qualifications in this list will disqualify you very quickly. So like if you fail to the faithful to your wife,
Yeah.
you're out
Yeah.
immediately, right? If you fail to the given to drunkenness, normally you're also out immediately. If you regularly fail on the quarrelsome,
Yeah.
people have more patience for that one, like in members meetings, right? It's like, man, he always fights in members meetings, but he's passionate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's lover of money. Yeah, that one is more or less okay. There was this book years ago. Remember, Respectable Sins?
Yeah.
Oh,
Right.
man, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is, we need to be careful not to let those things be tolerated. Obviously, the flagrant symptoms, I mean, we need to be careful at the seed before they have a root and a trunk,
Sure.
right? Because, so I think that for me, that's where I am trying to, and I was even reflecting on, like, when I say something stupid like that in passing, like I could just throw something, maybe I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
Like, because, I don't really care. So if I'm just teasing a buddy, then that might be playing with the seeds
Yeah.
of things more than you want, right? Because I don't think, I think that's where we have to be careful, but like, that's why sometimes people have, like, it's very common in American church history, at least, for people to say, like, okay, so a pastor doesn't drink at all because, be careful of the seeds, or doesn't deal with the finances or whatever. But I think there is a good virtue in saying, like, okay, we don't want any of these habits to build up.
Right.
And for a man of God to be serious about them, no violence, no seeds of violence, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk. I think we can make a turn to verse 4.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
He must manage his own family well and see that his children obey him, and must do so in a manner worthy of full respect. Verse 5 then comments, if anyone does not know how to manage his own family, how can he take care of God's church?
I like, Natan, how you had talked about the ability part of this one, because it does seem like even the argument that is made, he's like, hey, if you can't take care of this very important but smaller group of people,
Right.
then how could you then take care of this larger group of people?
Right.
And it's like, what is actually implied there is something about like a man's capacity to lead. You have a capacity that's larger than just this one group, and the ability when more people are involved.
Right.
So I think I agree with you on that.
And 1 Peter 5 says that be shepherds of the flock that is under your care, watching over them. This oversight is a task that's entrusted to you, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So what does it look like to manage a family well?
Well, some part is very specific. his children obey him.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it doesn't mean you don't struggle, of course, but your children know that they need to obey you when they are under your care.
Yeah.
Right? So that one is very specific. But yeah, I think that's managing your family. It's being able to lead your family in the instruction of the Lord and to obey those commands that are in the Bible.
Yeah. But again, even when he says well, the word is well.
Mhm.
And
Right.
even your question, David, goes at it. It's like, okay, this one seems like there's a principle here there's some specifics of like, hey, children obey him. But it's like you got to work out that principle in a community and in a culture. And again, it feels a little bit when we were talking about respectability earlier of like a manner worthy of full respect. Do people in your church look at you and say, oh, he manages his family well. I go to this person for help and advice. He shares. He's kind of in the laboratory of his own home figured out some things that can help the rest of us.
Right.
Right.
Right. And there's you're not supposed to be lording it over them in 1 Peter 5, which in Ephesians 5, or 6, excuse me, the pastor or the father's not supposed to be exasperating his children.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a father who is exasperating instead of instructing and building up and leading is going to be a lording over type leader.
Yeah.
It is fascinating to me to think about that correlation. And then you say maybe the only there's edification or instruction and correction surely in see that his children obey him.
Yep.
So they know what the expectations of their household are, and probably they're being reinforced at some level, right? So they're being instructed in this is what it looks like to live in the Doran house,
Right.
and then there's some patient endurance in not exasperating them, but getting them there. And if I've said chew with your mouth closed once in the last week, I've said it 4,000 times. So
Yep.
And that's where it's an ability, because it's manage it well, because it's very complicated.
Yeah. Manage even.
Yeah, setting rules at a place
Right.
is very easy.
right,
Like I can tell my kids, hey, on Sundays we'll go to church, and don't repeat it ever again, and that's what we do, you know. And then your children become 15, 16, 17, and like, Dad, I don't want to go to church anymore. Okay, and you said, no, hey, check out the rule. We just go. It's difficult.
yeah.
It's difficult, you know, because you're not gonna be able to push him, you know, or just like carry him in the car and take him, you know. So this ability of convincing someone and leading them and shepherd them in the right way, right?
Yeah.
It says in Titus, the parallel passage, the children believe and are not open to the charge of being wild and disobedient.
Right.
Wild.
Right.
They are wild.
And I take that passage to mean simply or as something synonymous with 1 Timothy 3.
Right.
That believe is a time where faithful would be a good rendering. That they're not outright rebellious. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think that, I mean, as a dad, there's been so many things that I've experienced and learned on the fly with them about how to disciple somebody, how to care for somebody, how to be patient, that I see all the time how that translates into being a pastor.
Right.
You know, and they're kind of both happening at the same time. But I totally see the wisdom in this. I think the other piece of it too is that your family is this interesting group of people that it's like there's a part of it where it's like they love you and you're like famous in your own house kind of way. But at the same time, you're not that impressive to them.
Right.
And you're not like you can't really be like performing for them.
Can't fake it.
Long term. You can't fake it.
Right.
And I think if as a qualification and as a test of somebody, if somebody's like, hey, I want to be a pastor and I want to lead these people and I'm meeting all these qualifications, but they're not really putting in the effort at home and they're not as motivated at home, then that's a yellow flag, maybe red flag. It's like, well, why?
yeah.
You know, is it why are you're not as motivated at home to be a shepherd,
Right.
but you want to be a shepherd with these people, right?
Right. And I do think the word household, personally, it means more. I mean, it says his own family. So, I think one of the biggest challenges we're facing in our church is often guys figuring out how to lead their wives and their to build their home base.
Yeah.
So to build their home base together with their wife,
Yep.
and then to get their home base to the place where they can take up new missions. That's it. That really feels like in our culture right now, one of the biggest challenges. We don't have guys that are, aspiring to eldership who are out there getting wasted or like beating somebody up on the street. We're not dealing with some of the,
Yeah.
the more flagrant, like, well, you're not qualified because you're violent. But we have plenty of challenge with, it's like, man,
Yeah.
I don't know if we're together in pursuing this project.
Do you think it's
And that's leadership, right? That's
Do you think
management.
it's more character related, capacity related, competency related, vision for it related? What how would you diagnose that?
Well, I know for my own life that I went through that season of friction, and it was all about my own character, because my inability to lead Abby was only about my need for personal growth. And
In what way?
I mean, a bunch of ways, but probably the most profound would be just an overarching disposition of humility in the task of leadership that made being respected and being respectable in her eyes a non-issue. It was an issue for me that I was an immature leader, and I would think in my head something like, she's not treating me right. And that was really the cloud that misted my eyes from seeing well, you are not worth respecting
Yep.
in profound ways.
Yep.
And when I opened my eyes, by God's grace, he opened my eyes, I should say, and to humble myself and just say, I'm not going to preoccupy myself at all with whether or not anyone I'm leading is doing what's right. But I'm going to be the kind of man that God would like to use to lead them. And it's amazing how many people started following when you focus on that. Right. You know what I mean? But when you focus on
that
no,
goes back
lead
to
me.
The thing I was going to say,
Listen to me.
from a different angle, is it seems when I'm seeing that same trend, it usually is coming back to I think that there's a step one of the self-control and leading yourself. That when you get that down, and you're always going to be growing in that, but when you really start to get that, it's like, hey, I know how to kind of make my own bed and read my Bible and pray and go to work and just some of that self-control stuff we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Then now it's like, okay, I'm got me. Now I'm kind of learning how to lead these people. If I can lead these people, and it seems like that's the progression of the passage too.
Right.
Then I can, maybe now I'm ready for greater responsibility of leading a larger group of people in the church.
Right. Yeah. And
So
guys, anybody listening, men, women,
Yep.
in this culture, please, you don't want to lead if you're not ready for it. Please, you think you do.
Speaking of verse 6?
6 and 7. Yeah. You don't want, our culture is so defined by overreach. Let me have an influence first. Let me get my influence first. And won't I gather my listeners and a following? And integrity must precede influence.
Well, and even that word influence, influencers today, and there's all kinds of them, but for the large part, you can become an influencer, and it doesn't have to do anything with your character. It's just
you have nothing to say.
Did you make something funny, or did you do something cool? And that could be totally disconnected from who you actually are.
And you don't have friends anymore. You have followers.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. And it'll come crashing down. It'll hollow out. What were you gonna say, Natan?
Yeah, the manage well, having a household where your wife, your children, and whoever else lives in that house, that God is priority number one. That you share the mission of glorifying His name, that everybody in that house is growing in the knowledge of the Lord, and putting Jesus first.
Yeah,
and that everybody is in that mission, and the dad leads the mission. And then the rest follow.
Yeah. I wonder too if there's some wisdom there, or say there's somebody that you're looking at as a potential elder.
Yeah.
And it's the guy's great personally, and you're I could see how he could really help our church. He's qualified, but then there's something with the home where you're but your family's just not in good shape right now.
Yeah.
And honestly, you need to focus on them right now.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? You need to focus on them before you take on a greater responsibility with the rest of us.
It's very down to earth, these
Yeah.
situations.
Yep.
It's like, so you have a husband and you have a wife, right? And you say, okay, God is priority number one. Okay. But then your 13-year-old, it's becoming very, very, very good at baseball or basketball or whatever, right? He becomes very, very good at basketball. And then maybe mom sees that he's becoming very good at basketball, and mom wants to invest a lot more in his basketball career, you know? And then dad says, hey, but what about these leagues where he plays on Sunday mornings or where he plays at the same time, you know, then we are supposed to go to church. And then you have that disagreement, and then it's like, okay, manage well. How
Those are the moments. Yeah.
How do you manage that?
Or it's going to cost us. It's going to cost us hundreds of dollars every month to give.
Right.
And we have a family budget.
Right.
And
And
you're
then,
like,
and then
wait a second.
we're not going to be able. So someone brings out the idea. Well, you know, if we didn't give money to the church, then we could pay for this league.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. And I would say before we get to the last one and wrap, if any of these things that we're talking about, if you're listening and you're just feeling like, man, I feel like I have miles to go before I could know how to do that. The first thing I would say is to what David said is like, that's okay. It's good to have that awareness, and like that should cause you to be like, okay, now I know where I need to grow. But the second thing I would say is these are the kinds of conversations we're supposed to have in the church.
Right.
Yeah.
In Titus chapter 2, after Paul gives these qualifications to Titus, he goes into this description of life in the church where the older are teaching the younger in very practical ways. Like, oh, family budget, how do I do that?
Right.
How do I manage it? What is it look? How do I make choices about what my kids are doing? All that kind of stuff. Those are so don't be hopeless. Get humble and ask.
Right.
You know, and find some people in the church that you see doing that well.
Absolutely.
And learn how to do it. That is literally what we're here for.
Absolutely. Because if you don't want to cover it and end up in leadership without addressing it.
Yeah.
It will eat you alive. And I can honestly say that almost every aspect, whether it's, somebody who doesn't know how to manage their finances, somebody who doesn't know how to manage their house, you know, the physical substance of their home, somebody who doesn't manage relationships, you know, they make decisions without their wife's trust and buy-in. And these things, I can think of real specific instances in all of those where it's cost guys their ministry. And not that that's the ultimate thing in the world, but literally, I mean, there's been there's a large blast radius because over time, those things catch up with you, you know?
And there's going to be a retreat in the fall where we're talking about some of those things.
Hey-o.
Right?
Oh, wow.
What's
Men's
going on with that retreat?
Into the storm, baby.
Into the storm.
Who knows if this is going to come out before or after that? So, but I mean,
That is
it's going to be
Well,
awesome.
now we
No,
know when
it
it's
was on
gotta
the
come
schedule.
out.
I think it is. But yes,
men's retreat.
got to get after
2025.
it. But I think it's good. Men don't, if you get discouraged and you think, I don't qualify, you don't want to be in the office of elder without qualifying. So just focus on qualifying. Don't worry about like, I'm not there yet, you know? Now, I think we should address the last one because then we've done both of these. So it says, he must not be a recent convert or may become conceited and fall under the same judgment as the devil and have a good reputation with outsiders. Those two, let's take them. They both reference the devil. I think they're both connected to a core thing, which is a reputation of humility and endurance.
Proven.
Humble maturity. Proven maturity.
Yeah. Yep.
So
Pride. Pride is a problem.
yeah, because if you have somebody that's a flash in the pan,
And you're saying
really,
pride because of the devil.
Right. The devil's trap, and it's a humility, and it's just the other side.
Yep. I think I agree.
Yeah, because if he has some kind of lack of integrity, that could be as a new convert just unproven maturity, or in the seventh verse, maybe a two-faced, right? There's places out there outside the walls of the church. There's places where people don't respect him at all.
Right.
That's the second one, right?
Yeah.
And both of those are fall of the same judgment as the devil or fall into the devil's trap. This lack of integrity that I think a man who is close to and sensitive to dependence on God, which happens over time, somebody who has suffered some things.
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading some resources in preparation for this, and I don't think that there's not a universal or definitely not even a historically attested amount of time.
Right.
But I wonder what you guys think
Well,
of like how long? It's not a recent
So
convert.
how long? I was gonna read a verse because recent convert.
Mm-hmm.
We can relate to that story because it's familiar in the church. Someone comes, young guy gets converted, in a miraculous fashion, night and day type change, and then he's reading the Bible.
He's on fire.
He's on fire. He's coming to everything. He's serving. He's praying. He's doing good. It's very easy to arrive at the assumption, man, this guy is gonna be a pastor.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a pastor, and then. So now the question becomes when? When is he gonna become a pastor? And with those recent
go for it.
right.
Sorry.
So I was gonna read Matthew 13:20, the parable of the sower. One of the seeds says, "The seed falling on rocky ground refers to someone who hears the word and at once receives it with joy." So that's that guy, right? So I would just say you need to give it a little time to see if verse 21 becomes true. But since they have no root, they last only a short time. When trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'd say enough time for them to go through some trouble and persecution.
Yep.
Right.
And I think it's like, obviously, we were talking earlier, it takes time to gain a grasp of the Bible and theology and to be able to teach. But there are some ways that you could have had some natural communication gifts or some spiritual gifts early on that you become this great communicator of what you know about the Bible.
Yeah.
But character just does not work that fast.
Right. Right.
It's like somebody could be emerging as a gifted leader or teacher earlier than you're going to be able to see if their character is proven, which again, you link it back to the rest of the list and you see, okay, the weight on this is character, and character just takes time.
Yeah.
And that's where I think we're not like totally in the dark of how recent of a convert, because it's like, okay, recent convert, not a recent convert. Now, let me look. Are we seeing this character yet or not? And then that's how we know.
Right. And I think it's a sliding scale. Like in some places, the church may be under great persecution, and conversion is very sacrificial.
Yep.
And I could see the timeline being shorter than in a place where, like, for instance, in this culture, it could be largely to a fanfare and applause.
Yeah.
Conversion could be.
Could be.
Although it's going away a little bit. That's actually where I'll just make a tangential connection. I'll make a plug for seminary again.
Do it.
In a culture where the cost of being a disciple is relatively low, I can only think of a few places, and they were really profound for my growth, by the way, where it was very clear what I was losing to obey the Lord. Because I grew up in a church, I had a lot of Christian friends, I had a lot of Christian connections, and so really the ecosystem of my life didn't require listen, Jesus says this, but it's going to cost you, But, seminary was definitely one of those.
Yeah.
I mean, to other people went on different career paths, and it's interesting. I think that in this culture, a guy who says, no, I won't make a career sacrifice like that income.
Right.
It's now in Saudi Arabia, it's like, hey, probably they're all making a very profound decision to be a believer that is at risk of their life. So the equation might be different. And I'm not trying to, but I think that's one of the places I was thinking through it. Like, okay, what are the things, if suffering is part of what forges the fires of maturity, where have I suffered for the gospel's sake? I mean, oddly enough, seminary is one of them. Right. Where you're like, this is going to just, I'm going to eat.
What was the suffering? Was it, the hard work, the time,
I
money?
I worked a full-time job.
Yep.
I worked a full-time student, and then I had 13 paper outs.
Yep.
And, like, it was broke as a joke. And just for years, you just said, okay, I'm working
that's a good example.
insane amounts. And the only reason was not, it's going to be worth it economically, right? It was like, no, because I want to give my life to this office. And so there was some kind of proving suffering. I think suffering, I'm okay with seminary being kind of suffering. Did you feel like it was suffering?
Well, yeah. It was
Yeah,
a
you did too.
big sacrifice.
Yeah. Sacrifice might be the
Yeah,
better
you
word.
moved here from, was it Mexico at that
Well,
time?
I moved
or-
from Spain to Mexico to do Bible college.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But
then
yeah,
up
that
to
was a big
Detroit.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
My parents were not ready to make that sacrifice when I first brought it up because I had a piano career going on that I had to quit. And then like if you want to do seminary full time and work full time, it's kind of tough. So I worked part time for 2 years, which with a part time salary.
Yeah.
So also with this recent convert and the trap of the devil, so the devil became prideful and he wanted God's position.
Yeah.
Right. It's very easy for a recent convert.
Yeah.
We all love those stories in football and baseball, right? But saying the first, graduate from college, LeBron James. He skipped college to play in the NBA because he was already
The
ready,
phenom.
right?
Yeah.
All of those
Yeah.
things. It's like, oh, this convert, he's never been to seminary and he has been a Christian for 2 minutes, but he's already going to lead this church in, and that it goes to your head very easily.
Yeah.
Very, very easily.
Right. So sacrifice maybe so maybe not even seminary. What I was touching on was not seminary, but like if somebody made a career change, I could see that being like, oh,
Evidence.
this is evidence because that's a big sacrifice.
Yep.
I mean, depending on the circumstances, right? So we have to watch out for the two-facedness. Clearly, I think it's good. Spurgeon, they used to just in membership interviews, they'd talk to your neighbors, talk to your boss.
Right.
I love that, and we should be calling like, hey, do you have a reputation? And this, you talked about that athletics. I remember when I was coaching, I had to go through a profound shift where I was on the refs, like you're talking about. And then I was coaching at Lincoln Park Public School, and I was like, oh, my word. Like, I have got, this passage really convicted me. Like, so now I sit when I coach soccer. Really, for the last decade, I have approached it much different. But it was because I was like, well, wait, I need to take this seriously. I can't be out there, bathing in the blood of referees.
It's a good example, too, of how you keep growing in these
Yeah, yeah.
qualifications. You keep
Yeah.
aspiring to them. You keep holding yourself to them. You keep testing them in new situations, new seasons.
Yeah. I feel like I got a couple things to work on thinking about this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
all right. So
Sure.
we want every believer to aspire to a life of integrity.
Yeah.
I would love for every man to measure this towards the office of elder, but I
Yeah.
also want women to aspire to this integrity as well. We
Yeah.
need more leaders in our churches. The Lord will supply them by people taking these words seriously and the Spirit producing that maturity. So
Yep.
let's get it.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah,
to-
add it,
related to
add
that?
it.
I've been thinking about this. So these qualifications are high. Standard is high.
Yeah.
The task is noble.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking though. You wanted to be a Navy SEAL at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the qualifications of being a Navy SEAL? You got to hold your breath underwater for 10 minutes or something.
I wanted to be, baby.
You got to hold a log in the water and be cold. Like there's kind of these, to be a Navy SEAL, the kinds of qualifications for that are things that normal humans don't need to do.
Right.
Right. They don't need to be able to do those things. Right.
Right.
What's interesting about the office of elder is it is high, it is noble, but these qualifications are what Christians are supposed to aspire to. All of us,
Right.
Men and women.
Right.
Mature Christianity is what's described in especially like those characteristics.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think for somebody that's thinking like, oh, I shouldn't even aspire to be a pastor because it's like this otherworldly other thing.
Right.
You're thinking about it wrongly. Like these qualifications should be a guide for everyone and especially every man when we think
Right.
of the office of
Right.
pastor.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Cosign, Ronnie. That's it.
Yeah.